There is a part of you the world will never meet. A side hidden deep beneath the masks you wear. Beneath the smiles, the words you carefully choose. Beneath the life you present to others. And yet, this hidden part shapes every thought, every desire, every decision you make. It is the shadow. Carl Jung spoke of it as the unconscious counterpart of the conscious self. The aspects of your being that you have denied, ignored, or rejected. It is not evil. It is not weakness. It is simply unseen, but like water flowing beneath the earth. It moves quietly through the chambers of your life, shaping its course, carving paths you scarcely recognize. We fear the shadow because it reflects what we refuse to acknowledge. Anger we cannot express, fear we cannot face, envy we dare not name. The impulses that society tells us are unacceptable. The truths about ourselves that our carefully constructed personas cannot bear. And yet, Jung insisted, it is precisely this part that holds the key to wholeness. To the depth of understanding that consciousness alone can never reach. Imagine a dark room. You have walked in, blind, carrying only a candle. The walls are lined with mirrors. Some cracked, some warped, some perfectly clear. In the flickering light, you glimpse yourself in ways you have avoided. Gestures, expressions, and shadows that feel foreign. And yet, as frightening as it seems, the room is not empty. It contains the pieces of your life you have hidden away, waiting for you to recognize them, to integrate them, to embrace them. The shadow is not meant to be conquered. It is not an enemy to be defeated, but a part of you to be understood. Jung believed that denying it leads to imbalance, to projection, to inner conflict, to patterns of behavior repeated endlessly without conscious recognition. We cast our shadows onto others. We fight what we refuse in ourselves. We suffer because we have turned away from the wholeness that awaits. To face the shadow is to step into a space of radical honesty. It is to look at the traits you despise, the desires you pretend do not exist, the fears you hide from even yourself. It is to acknowledge the duality of your nature. Light and dark, joy and grief, courage and fear. Only by embracing this complexity can transformation begin. And yet, this is no easy path. It demands courage to sit with discomfort, to witness the parts of yourself you would rather ignore, and to recognize that they are part of the same life force that drives your creativity, your insight, your capacity to love. For Jung taught that what we repress becomes stronger, lurking in the shadows, shaping our choices, whispering through dreams, desires, and fears, until we can no longer deny its presence. Consider your own life. The moments of inexplicable anger, the envy you cannot name, the shame you tuck away behind smiles and achievements. These are not anomalies. They are fragments of your shadow, signals from your unconscious, asking to be seen, understood, and accepted. When you embrace the shadow, you do not become darker. You become more complete, more authentic, more capable of perceiving the world without illusion, and of acting without unconscious compulsion. You begin to reclaim the energy you once spent denying yourself. You begin to understand the depth of your own humanity. And through that understanding, you find liberation. The shadow is also where creativity resides. Jung observed that the artists, the thinkers, the innovators, all tap into the parts of themselves that society labels unacceptable, chaotic, or dangerous. It is from this hidden reservoir that imagination flows, that insight emerges, that life itself becomes rich with possibility. To deny it is to deny your own potential. And so, the journey begins. A quiet, profound, and often unsettling journey. To know your shadow is not to indulge it blindly. It is to see it, feel it, understand it, and allow it to illuminate the hidden paths of your life. It is to meet yourself fully. Not just the light you show to the world, but the darkness that shapes you from within. The shadow doesn't live only inside you. It lives between you and the world. It seeps through the cracks of every conversation, every judgment, every attraction, and every resentment. We do not see it, but we feel it. that invisible weight in our interactions, the subtle tension behind our words. Jung believed that when we fail to face our shadow, we begin to project it onto others, the qualities we deny in ourselves. We start to see, with great intensity, in the people around us. The anger we repress becomes the aggression we condemn. The envy we hide becomes the arrogance we despise. The fear we refuse becomes the weakness we judge. We call others selfish because we cannot admit our own craving for attention. We call them controlling because we cannot face our own need for order and certainty. We hate in others what we cannot forgive in ourselves. And so, without knowing, we turn the outer world into a mirror of our own unhealed depths. Every argument, every irritation, every feeling of superiority or humiliation, it all carries a quiet message from the unconscious. The shadow is asking to be seen. To stop projecting it, we must turn our gaze inward. We must ask, what is this person reflecting back to me? What part of myself am I seeing in them? The shadow shapes our love as well. We often fall in love not with who someone truly is, but with the parts of ourselves we've disowned, the confidence we lack, the mystery we suppress, the freedom we crave. Attraction, Jung said, is often the soul's attempt to make itself whole again, to recover what has been lost in the unconscious. That is why relationships are so charged, so emotional, so transformative. They pull from the depths. They awaken what has been buried. They force us to confront ourselves in ways we never could alone. Every disappointment in love, every heartbreak, is an invitation to see your own reflection more clearly. But most people run. They blame. They seek new lovers, new friends, new enemies, believing the problem lies outside. In truth, it lies within, until the shadow is acknowledged. The same pattern repeats again and again. Different faces, same pain. When Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. He was not speaking in riddles. He was describing this very pattern. The shadow controls the choices we don't know we're making. It hides beneath the surface of our beliefs, guiding us towards situations that replay old wounds, until we are ready to see them. If you've ever wondered why you keep attracting the same kind of people, why you repeat the same mistakes, why life seems to hand you the same lesson in different forms, the answer lies here. Your shadow is calling for recognition. It wants integration, not exile. But integration does not mean indulgence. To integrate the shadow is not to act out its desires blindly, but to understand them. To give them a voice without giving them control. It's to bring awareness into darkness. To feel the heat of anger without letting it burn your world down. To feel envy and trace it back to your longing for growth. To feel fear and see the wisdom it hides. Integration begins in moments of stillness. When you pause before reacting. When you ask yourself, what is this emotion teaching me about myself? That pause, that breath, is where the unconscious becomes conscious. It's where healing begins. And slowly, the shadow softens. It stops trying to sabotage you, because it no longer needs to shout to be heard. Its power transforms into awareness. Its chaos into creativity. Its pain into compassion. The very energy that once ruled you becomes the force that frees you. This is why Jung saw individuation, the process of becoming whole, as a sacred task, not a path of perfection, but of honesty. To be whole is not to be pure light, but to walk with both light and shadow, and know them as one. The world tells you to stay positive, to think good thoughts, to ignore the darkness. But Jung warned, to reject the shadow is to live half a life. Only by walking through the dark forest do you find the true gold, the treasure of self-knowledge, the peace that comes from no longer running from yourself. We live in an age obsessed with the image of perfection. Everywhere you look, screens, profiles, curated moments. You're told to show only the light. To be strong, confident, successful, peaceful. Always in control. To display your achievements, not your doubts. To speak your truth, but only if it's pretty enough to be liked. Jung would have seen this as a collective illusion. A great masquerade where everyone wears a mask. The persona, as he called it. The persona is the face we show the world. The version of ourselves we believe will be accepted. It's the social self, polished and rehearsed. Shaped by the expectations of others. The persona is not evil. It allows us to function in society. To adapt to the world around us. But when we confuse the mask for the person beneath, we begin to lose ourselves. We become actors in a play we no longer remember auditioning for. We live for applause that no longer feeds us. Every time you suppress an honest emotion to appear composed. Every time you agree when you want to say no. Every time you pretend you're fine when you're breaking inside. You feed the persona. And the more the persona grows, the more the shadow hungers. For everything the mask hides is stored in the dark below. We think control keeps us safe. But it's control that traps us. We spend years tightening our grip, trying to maintain the illusion of order, fearing that if we stop pretending, the chaos within will consume us. But what we resist persists, and what we repress returns, stronger, stranger, and harder to contain. This is why anxiety rises in silence, why anger leaks out in sarcasm, why sadness appears as numbness. These are the whispers of the shadow, asking to be seen. When you feel restless for no reason, when joy feels hollow, when success feels strangely empty, it's not because something's wrong with you. It's because the mask has grown too heavy to carry. The modern world rewards masks. At work, in relationships, even in spirituality. We're encouraged to brand ourselves, to perform our worth. But behind every performance is a quiet fatigue, a voice whispering, "This is not me." And the more we ignore that voice, the more disconnected we feel. Jung's message cuts through that illusion like a blade. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not the image of who you think you should be, not the reflection others approve of, but the raw, authentic presence that exists beneath all performance. To remove the mask feels terrifying. It feels like death. And in a way it is. The death of the false self. The unraveling of an identity built on fear. But in that death lies freedom. When you stop pretending, you stop needing approval to exist. When you stop performing, you stop fearing rejection. The first step toward that freedom is honesty. Brutal, uncomfortable honesty. Not the kind you post online, but the kind that happens in quiet moments with yourself. Ask, what part of me am I hiding to be loved? What truth have I buried beneath politeness? What emotions am I refusing to feel? To live without a mask is not to become reckless, but to become real. It means allowing both strength and vulnerability, both light and darkness, to coexist without shame. It means letting others see the cracks, not as flaws, but as the places where truth seeps through. In modern life, the shadow shows up as perfectionism, as the need to always appear calm, as toxic positivity, the insistence that everything is fine when it's not, as burnout disguised as ambition, as self-neglect hidden beneath productivity. Jung warned that the more you polish the persona, the darker the shadow becomes, because the light you force outward casts a longer shadow behind you. To be whole, you must turn around and face what follows you. We live in a world that tells us to manifest light, but Jung would whisper, turn toward your darkness, for that is where your soul waits. It's not the mask that will save you. It's the courage to take it off, to meet the parts of yourself you've ignored, the jealous one, the fearful one, the lonely one, and to say quietly, you belong too. That is how integration begins. That is how peace begins. Not by silencing the shadow, but by listening to it. Because beneath every mask you wear, Your truest face is still waiting. Calm, patient, and whole. To meet your shadow is to stand in front of a mirror that does not flatter you. It is not the mirror of social media, nor the one of polite conversation. It is the mirror of the soul, where every emotion you've ever buried, every impulse you've ever denied, comes quietly into view. This meeting is not an act of judgment. It is not about calling yourself broken or flawed. It is about seeing clearly, without the need to fix or defend. The shadow, when approached with honesty, is not an enemy. It is a wounded child who has been waiting for you to listen. Jung said that, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And so, to make peace with your shadow is to begin taking your fate back into your own hands. The first step is observation, pure awareness. Notice when irritation arises in you. Notice the envy that stirs when someone succeeds. Notice the little lies you tell to be liked. The quick dismissals you make to avoid feeling inferior. These moments are not failures. They are clues, breadcrumbs left by your unconscious, leading you toward what needs to be seen. Observation means refusing to identify with the emotion, but also refusing to deny it. When you feel anger, don't say, "I shouldn't be angry." Instead, say, "Anger is here." Let it be present in your awareness without resistance. Watch how it moves, how it burns, how it fades. You are not the anger. You are the space in which anger appears. This awareness begins to dissolve the illusion of control. You see that emotions are not moral failures. They are natural expressions of your inner weather. When you stop fighting them, they reveal their message. Anger may be a boundary unspoken. Jealousy may be the reflection of a dream you've abandoned. Fear may be the part of you that longs to be safe. Every dark feeling hides a fragment of light. But you can't reach that light by skipping the darkness. You must walk through it, slowly, gently, without judgment. The second step is compassionate understanding. The shadow thrives in self-rejection. The more you hate what you see in yourself, the stronger it grows. But when you turn toward it with curiosity and compassion, it softens. Imagine speaking to yourself as you would to someone you love. If a friend confessed their jealousy or rage, would you shame them? Or would you listen, try to understand what pain lives beneath? Do the same for yourself. Because your shadow is not evil. It is hurt, silenced, forgotten, but never beyond redemption. The third step is integration. Integration does not mean perfection. It means wholeness. It means allowing light and dark to coexist without war. It means being authentic, not always good, not always right, but always real. When you begin to integrate your shadow, you notice subtle shifts. You react less. You forgive faster. You stop explaining yourself to those who will never understand. You begin to feel a quiet confidence. A groundedness that doesn't need approval. Integration makes you humble, because you know your darkness. It makes you empathetic, because you see it in others too. You stop dividing the world into good and evil, right and wrong, light and dark. You start to see the beauty in the full spectrum of being. This is what Jung meant when he said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." To make the darkness conscious is not a single act, but a lifelong dialogue with yourself. Each day, something new rises from the depths. A forgotten memory, a hidden fear, a surprising desire. Meet them all as guests at your table. Some will whisper wisdom. Others will only ask to be seen. Don't turn away. Because each time you turn toward your shadow, you reclaim a piece of your soul. Each time you face a truth you once avoided, you become more whole. There will be moments when this process feels heavy. When you wish to go back to sleep, to hide again behind your familiar mask. But remember, the discomfort is a sign of awakening. You are growing beyond the limits of the self you once pretended to be. And growth always begins in darkness. Like roots beneath the earth. Or stars before dawn. If you can sit quietly in that darkness, if you can breathe through the ache of seeing yourself as you truly are, you will find something extraordinary there. Not shame, not fear, but power. The kind of power that does not shout. The kind of power that does not depend on others. The kind of power that is born only from truth. And once you have touched that truth, you will never again mistake the mask for your face. The purpose of shadow work is not to dwell endlessly in darkness. It is to walk through the darkness until you can carry its light. The goal is not to fix yourself, but to discover that you were never truly broken, only divided. When you integrate the shadow, something remarkable happens. You begin to sense a quiet, inner strength that doesn't come from pretending to be strong. It comes from no longer being afraid of your weakness. Because the moment you stop hiding from what frightens you, you stop being controlled by it. Jung believed that transformation happens through tension. The meeting of opposites within you. The shadow is not meant to be destroyed, but balanced with the conscious self. This balance, this harmony between light and dark, creates a new form of awareness. A self that is deeper, more whole, more real. Imagine standing in front of your fears and feeling no need to run. Imagine facing your anger, your shame, your loneliness, and seeing not a monster, but a teacher, a mirror that reflects your hidden strength. That is what it means to transcend the shadow. You do not escape it, you evolve with it. You begin to use what once wounded you as a source of wisdom. Your pain becomes empathy. Your failure becomes resilience. Your darkness becomes depth. This transformation is not loud. It does not announce itself to the world. It unfolds quietly, like dawn. You wake one morning and realize you no longer react the way you used to. You no longer fear being misunderstood. You no longer chase what doesn't nourish your soul. Something inside you has shifted. You are still the same person, and yet entirely different. You have stopped needing control because you have found understanding. You have stopped seeking validation because you have found peace. You have stopped fearing darkness because you have become light enough to hold it. This is what Jung called individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming whole. It is not about rising above your humanity, but descending fully into it, embracing every contradiction, every imperfection, every truth that lives within you. When you become whole, the world changes too. You see people differently. Their cruelty reveals their pain. Their arrogance hides their insecurity. Their silence speaks their longing. You stop judging and start understanding. You stop dividing people into good and bad. You start seeing them as mirrors, each reflecting something of your own inner landscape. To live this way is to move through life with profound calm. You no longer need to defend your worth. You no longer fear failure or rejection. You meet both joy and sorrow with the same open heart. Because you understand that everything, light and dark, love and loss, is part of the same whole. Jung once said, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order." When you integrate your shadow, you begin to sense that secret order. You realize that the moments of confusion, pain, and despair were not meaningless. They were initiation. Each shadow that entered your life was an invitation to grow more real, more compassionate, more free. And now, when you look back on your past, at the mistakes, the regrets, the people who hurt you, you see them not as curses, but as teachers. Each one shaped you into someone capable of seeing truth without flinching, someone who can love without clinging, someone who can stand in solitude without fear. This is the quiet power of the integrated soul. It does not shout. It radiates. It does not conquer. It understands. It does not demand love. It becomes love. There is an extraordinary peace that comes when you stop fighting your own nature, when you stop trying to be perfect, when you simply allow yourself to be dark and light, strong and soft, human and divine. That peace is not the absence of struggle. It is the acceptance of life as it is. It is the moment you exhale and realize you no longer need to control the storm, because you are the sky that holds it. You are both the darkness and the dawn. And once you see that, once you feel it deep in your bones, nothing outside you can shake you again, because you will have found the source that was always within. When you begin to live with your shadow, life feels less like a battlefield and more like a conversation. The inner conflict softens. You stop fighting to become someone else and start listening to the quiet voice that says, "This is who I am." To live with your shadow is to live honestly. It means you no longer hide behind masks. You no longer perform your goodness or apologize for your depth. You no longer measure yourself by the comfort you give others, but by the truth you hold within. Wholeness is not about being flawless. It is about being real. It is the quiet knowing that light and darkness belong to the same sky. That even when you fall back into fear or anger or doubt, you are still whole, because you are aware. Awareness is what transforms. It doesn't erase your darkness, it illumines it. It lets you see yourself clearly, even in pain. And when you see yourself clearly, you can no longer live unconsciously. This changes how you move through the world. Your relationships deepen. You no longer demand perfection from others, because you've stopped demanding it from yourself. You no longer fear their flaws, because you recognize your own. Instead of needing others to complete you, you begin to meet them soul to soul. Not as halves searching for wholeness, but as complete beings sharing light and shadow together. You understand that real love is not the absence of darkness, but the courage to hold it, in yourself and in those you care for. You learn to forgive more easily, to speak more gently, to listen more deeply. You begin to love people as they are, not as you wish them to be, and with that love comes freedom. Because love born from wholeness does not cling. It does not demand. It does not fear loss. It flows, like breath, like wind, like time. Living with the shadow also means living with paradox. You realize that peace and chaos coexist. That joy and grief are intertwined. That clarity and confusion dance together in every human heart. You stop waiting for life to make sense. Instead, you begin to trust it. You allow mystery to exist without needing to solve it. This trust gives rise to a deep inner calm. A stillness that doesn't come from having everything figured out, but from finally surrendering the need to. The integrated soul walks through both storm and sunlight, with the same grace, because it knows it belongs to both. Jung once said, "Only the paradox comes anywhere near to comprehending the fullness of life." To live with the shadow is to live inside that paradox. To know that you are both saint and sinner, both fragile and unbreakable, both darkness and dawn. And when you finally stop dividing yourself, the world begins to feel less divided too. You start to see beauty where others see brokenness, meaning where others see chaos. You begin to sense the quiet intelligence of life, a rhythm that has always carried you, even when you resisted it. In that realization, there is freedom. Freedom from control. Freedom from fear. Freedom from the endless chase to prove your worth. You understand that you don't need to be anyone else. You don't need to impress or convince or hide. You are enough, because you are whole. And in that wholeness, you become luminous. People around you will feel it. Not because you speak louder, but because your presence is calm. Because your energy is grounded. Because your truth is quiet, but undeniable. That is the mark of someone who has met their shadow and lived to tell the story. Not someone who has conquered darkness, but someone who has learned to dance with it. So when you wake tomorrow, don't rush to fill the silence. Sit with yourself. Listen to the hum beneath your thoughts. Notice what stirs in you, the tension, the longing, the resistance. And instead of turning away, turn toward it. Whisper to it, "I see you. You can stay." That is where the transformation lives. In the small, quiet moments of honesty that no one else will ever see. That is where the self becomes whole again. And as you walk through life, through its joys, its heartbreaks, its shadows, remember, you were never meant to destroy the darkness. You were meant to illuminate it. because the light you seek has always been inside you, waiting patiently for you to return home to yourself. There comes a moment, after all the searching and striving, when you realize that healing was never about becoming something new. It was about remembering who you've always been, not the version you show the world, but the one that breathes softly beneath it all, the one who was never broken, never lost, only hidden. If you close your eyes right now and listen carefully, you might feel that quiet pulse within you. It doesn't demand. It doesn't fight. It simply exists. Peaceful, steady, eternal. That is your wholeness. The part of you that holds both light and shadow, and calls neither an enemy. You are not here to escape your darkness. You are here to walk beside it, to learn its language, to let it teach you compassion, depth, and truth. And when you do, you will no longer fear yourself. You will simply be. So tonight, let stillness be your prayer. Let your breath remind you that you belong here. And let the light within you, quiet, unwavering, guide you home.